Hi, guys, and welcome to Swamp Stories. I'm Tomas Rubio. This podcast is for the believers and the skeptics of the paranormal activity. I wanted to welcome Ashley Royer, and she's a creative coordinator at the Imperial Calcasieu Museum in Lake Charles.
Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing?
Thank you. She's going to talk about some popular haunted stories in our history of Louisiana, and let's jump in now. Well, first I want to do a little interview about yourself. What got you interested in all this?
So, my husband, Jeremy Royer, is the lead investigator for the Old Number 7 Society, which is a paranormal investigation group. Since the time we met, we have been going out, checking locations. I've got to go on a few of their investigations with them. Mostly I do the photography, and it just kind of struck with me.
Well, I have a couple of topics that are very popular around here. One of which is the Gothic hanging jail in DeRidder.
So the Gothic hanging jail got its name from one particular justice case of Jogina and Moulton Brasso. They went out on a joyride that ended badly with a murder, and that murder led them to being prosecuted and hung on site at the jail. And since then, strange things have happened, and people have reported unusual activity.
Like what kind?
So some of the tour guides at the jail have quit because an invisible entity will frisk them. There's also been ghost photography and a lot of EVPs found on site.
How many prisoners were in there? Do you know?
I don't know how many went through there altogether, but the only two executed on site are Jogina and Moulton Brasso.
I heard while I was investigating, there was very harsh conditions in the jail.
It was pretty strange. There was different. It depended on what your sentence would be. They had general rooms where they would have up to 12 prisoners in a room. There were solitary rooms, and then they had their death row rooms, which were pretty cruel looking.
Mm-hmm.
They're like giant steel cages that they would keep them in. What's not as commonly known is that the sheriff and his family lived on the first floor of the jail. They were completely separated off with concrete walls. They used a food levee to lift up the food to the prisoners.
So we have another topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Axe Theater in Lake Charles.
Axe Theater is a really awesome location. This is on the corner of Reed Street and Railroad Avenue. A lot of reports of voices, frames falling off the walls, EVPs, bumps and sounds. The location, before it was a theater, the theater was built in the 60s. But before that, it was a frame shop with an apartment above it, and a man named William Porty lived there. And in 1952, the frame shop caught on fire, and everyone there thought he had gotten out. Someone, in fact, reported they saw him walking down the road. After the fact, they found out he had died upstairs. And he was known as the Candy Man here in Lake Charles, sold sweets in a basket, wore a stovepipe hat. He was really quite popular. And because of his association with children selling the sweets, people think that maybe the children performing in the theater have caused his spirit to stay on site.
For some reason, when I was doing research, it was Ellis Hill, and I didn't really see many articles, I would say, about it. Could you go
So
into
Ellis Hill is a stretch of highway on 109, and it's really well known to the residents of the Starks and Vinton area. And along the stretch of highway, there is light phenomenon that will happen. It's a pale white with slight pale blue light that would follow behind cars, veer off either into the trees or up into the sky. But the oldest paper documentation of it is from the 60s. And so for decades now, people have been reporting this light phenomenon. You wouldn't know about it unless you traveled through the area. It's very back roads, but there's just tons of stories about it. There is possible scientific explanations, maybe ball lightning, swamp gas. that possible stuff. But there's also a lot of fun paranormal tales that could say it might be a spirit.
Um, I saw this YouTube video about this,
Mm-hmm.
and it said there was this couple that apparently saw a hoof creature or something. And do you
Oh.
know anything about that?
That might there are rumors of like a goat man in the
Mm-hmm.
area. I don't know too much about him, but I do know that it's part man, part goat.
Mm-hmm.
One of those tales you tell the children to stay inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there was another one. I think it was a lady who died. I think it was the Calcasieu courthouse.
Yes, you're talking about Tony Joe Henry.
Yes, ma'am.
So her given name is Anne Patrice McQueeston. She's actually buried in Orange Grove Cemetery. She is the only woman in Louisiana to be put to death by the electric chair. Um, so her story is also a justice tale. As a young woman, or actually a young lady, she at 14 she left her home life. It was a violent home life, and she left it to become a street lady. And afterwards, she met Claude Cowboy Henry, who she deeply fell in love with. But shortly after their honeymoon, after they were married, he was arrested for a murder over in Texas, and she didn't want to take that standing. So she and an accomplice, Archie, got together, and they were going to break Cowboy out of jail. But that night that they set out ended badly, and they ended up killing a good Samaritan who gave them a ride. It's always been debated, was it her or was it Archie who killed him? They did play he said, she said until the end, but she was put to death in our Calcasieu courthouse, where they actually kept her housed in. They made a special sale for her
Mm-hmm.
on the premises.
I keep hearing this mention of what was it? That organization.
Old Number 7 Society.
Yeah. Even while I was investigating, I heard a bunch of them about this, about all these.
So they're local residents of Southwest Louisiana, and they have taken a big interest in just recording the history and trying to gain evidence. One of the things I like that Jeremy always said is that maybe they just don't have the correct equipment yet to get further evidence. Like maybe we're still trying to figure out how to record this, but what is undeniable is that they are picking up evidence that is not disputable, and I thought that was interesting.
Anything personal has ever happened that you would say it was a little paranormal?
I did have an experience as a child, yes. And it's kind of silly. We lived with my grandmother for a number of years, and just a little old house. Everyone's asleep, and I heard pitter patter up and down the hallway. And me being a kid, I'm like, oh, it's that noise. And I got up. And as I walked down the hallway, the further I walked down, the pitter patter would go to the end of the hallway, which met up to a second hallway, and it moved. And I got down there, and then I hear it, and like suddenly it stops, and it's like beating on the washer in the closet. And I open it up, and it stops. I never did find out what it was.
Oh.
I always assumed it was the porcelain dolls on the mantle.
I feel like everybody has their own like little paranormal. I know for me, I was home alone. I don't know how old I was. And then I was just sitting on the couch watching cartoons. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see like this really little man just running around.
Oh,
I got
really?
so scared. It was raining outside. I didn't even bother. And I just ran outside.
There is a paranormal tale of little people with the Kusati tribe.
Really?
Yes. In fact, they're just known as the little people. They're mischief makers almost. But there's tales of like, don't follow the little people into the woods because you might not come back. So that's one of their tribal, I would say myths and legends, more for them, because this is an oral tale that they tell themselves and that they pass down generation to generation. And you can't make fun of these creatures because to mock them could cause them to want to take retribution. Like this is a very serious tale that they share.
Well, good thing I ran out the house.
Yeah, well, yeah, good thing you didn't follow it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think we're nearing towards the end of the show. I just really wanted to say thank you for coming out here and just telling us more of like our history that not many people really know about. I know there's a lot of people who really care about this, and you seem to
I
really care.
do. I do. And we encourage people to explore, investigate. There's also just be respectful. When you go to these locations, a lot of these locations have vandalism happening. And so part of it is be very respectful for the location you're at, treat it with care because a lot of them are old sites and they're sites that have meaning to the people of the communities around them. That's a big part of the investigation. That but thank you so much for inviting
Thank
me.
you. Well, that's about it. Thank you for tuning in to Swamp Stories. I'm Tomas Rubio, and I'm signing.